Welcome back, guys, to another Prowler podcast where it's always raw, uncut, and always authentic to our audience. But tonight we're stepping off the field into the kind of the heart of a championship culture in a way. We're going to pull back the curtain on what it takes to build a men of character and dominate on Saturdays and push the limits of a traditional program. And with that being said, we're looking at the game through the lens of a visionary leader who commands the sidelines at a very high pace. So, competing from a small school, college athletics doesn't mean everything because as we'll find out tonight, Wabash College head coach is on with us tonight, and he brings tremendous leader and mentor and a catalyst for what he has brought to Wabash College and the new stadium they have built, because I got a chance to visit it. It's one remarkable one, which I'll show you at the end of this podcast, what it looks like. But before we jump into tonight's podcast, I'm going to turn it over to Coach Gilbert as he kind of introduces himself a little bit, and then we'll jump into tonight, guys.
Yeah, hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you having us on here, and grateful. So excited and honored to be a part of the Prowler podcast. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Coach, for coming on. It's always good to have a coach come on, especially at the collegiate level, who's also coached at the high school level, because it brings a lens of the recruiting world together and that's an important sector, I think, in today's landscape with the portal as the way it is and the NIL landscape as well. It brings a dynamic, conversation for sure when you have both of those lenses like you have. So.
Yeah, I love the game of football, and I played for a long, long time since I was 6 years old, and even after my college career, played some backyard, semi-pro, longest yard type of stuff. And then in coaching, though, I've really coached youth through college, and I just love the game, and I really love it at all levels, and I think that's been a blessing for me to teach the game to kids in first grade and kindergarten all the way up through college, and just kind of understanding the development of a young player all the way through. And that's certainly helped my career. I think I see things somewhat differently sometimes than coaches who've only been in one spot. And certainly being a college coach helped me when I was a high school coach, and being a high school coach has helped me be a better college coach. And they've really, the experience has been good for me in terms of just my overall career. I think this is my 22nd year as the head coach, and, probably about 30th overall, or maybe not quite that much, 28th overall. I'm 50 years old. I've coached since I was 22. So it's been good.
No, that's awesome. Well, we'll jump into the first topic tonight, which is kind of the unique Wabash identity, and for people who tune in who's not familiar with Wabash College or the Little Giants legacy, but how would you describe your guys' culture for the people that doesn't really know about Wabash?
Yeah, so Wabash is a small liberal arts all-male school in Crawfordsville, Indiana. So there's only two truly all-male schools out there where men don't go to class with women. It's truly a single-sex education. There's women that work at Wabash. There's, you can have girlfriends there and all this. And it's very co-ed during football games and on weekends. But through the week, it's kind of what it is. Not a boarding school. Our guys aren't wearing uniforms. It's just kind of a leadership factory. And so the culture of football, the culture of the locker room is generally all male. And so Wabash is kind of like that all the time. It's an elite school. The average GPA that gets in is 3.7. But it's very blue collar. It's not a silver spoon type of place. Very blue collar place that loves football. School's been around since 1832. We've played football for well over a century. We've been successful before me. We'll be successful after me. We're fifth all time in victories in Division III, and we've averaged 9 wins per season since 2000. And we really do that with a culture of brotherhood and commitment, where we outwork and we outlove every day. And we can really demand that out of our guys. They're highly intelligent. They're highly committed. They love the game of football. And they choose Wabash because when football is over, they want to become doctors and lawyers and CEOs. But while they still can, they want to play a high level of football.
For sure. No, that's awesome. And to know you carry that kind of level of academics with it as well is really good incentive, because, a lot of schools don't offer those kind of courses. And I can tell you this: if I had an all boys school when I was going to college and playing football, it would have helped me probably stand out more on the football field in some ways. So wouldn't be too many distractions. So,
Sure.
but Coach,
I went to Wabash, and I honestly think, like many people, I was kind of a reluctant yes. Um, at some point, you just can no longer deny that this
mhm,
is the best thing for your future, and you sign up and you go to Wabash, and you realize, wow, I'm building deep friendships and relationships, and this place will affect me and impact me all the days of my life. I think if I had gone to a big state school, I think I would have been chasing the wrong things. And it certainly helped me just, iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. I think you're just kind of really surrounded by people who are pretty serious about the future and committed, and there's a lot of positive peer pressure, which helps not only on the field, but in the classroom.
yeah, no, and it's funny you say iron sharpens iron. I played at a small school in Mississippi, and our head coach came from Richmond, Blaine McCorkle, who's the head coach now at Northwestern State. But that's the first thing he put up in our locker room when he repainted it and had it redone is iron sharpens iron. And it carried a heavy weight because he goes there for 5 years. And about my last 2 years, we started turning the corner and trending towards a winning record. And in the last year he was there, he won the conference and made it to the round 2 of the D3 playoffs, which was remarkable because that's the farthest that school's ever reached in their tenure in the NCAA level. So he had a really remarkable journey there. And now he's having a pretty good impact at the D1 level at FCS school, which he jumped from a D3 school to a D1 as a head coach, which is also a remarkable thing. So,
Well, that's from Proverbs 27:17.
yep,
It was true 1,000 years ago. It's still true today.
it is for sure. And one of the things he always said with that is iron sharp as iron. And our mascot was a Blazers, and a Blazer does not let a Blazer die. That was every time he stepped in the locker room. That's what he said, the last words. So before he took the field. So he was a very impactful coach. But Coach, what would you say makes the Wabash experience so much different from the universities across the country? I know you kind of said about how it's all men's school, but from when I was up there, Wabash is a very unique and a very invested school in their athletics department. And I think that's crucial because not many people realize that D3 does take athletics seriously.
Yeah, I mean, we have great outcomes. Our alumni are very engaged and involved and give back. We have a big time endowment, and we care about the facilities and the experience. And so we want to make sure that, we're helping our guys reach their full potential in all ways. We care very much about the engagement with our students and our student athletes and sense of belonging. Well, the reality is, in every recruiting class for the school that comes in, about 70% of the freshmen that come in play a sport at Wabash. So that's pretty unique. And so when you consider we're an all-male school, we have the highest percentage of football players per student body of any school in the universe. You really think about it.
Yep.
So we're at a school with 900 guys. Well, 160 are on the team. And there's, I'm sure another 40 out there that came to Wabash play football and no longer play. And so when you start adding it up, it's like, wow, this is a pretty high percentage of guys who play football. And then, the other sports thrive as well at Wabash. So it's a very athletic oriented school that happens to also be high end academic. And we collaborate and work well together. But obviously, that's a big draw to come to Wabash, is that we take our athletics very seriously. And we do that with facilities. We do that with the resources we put into coaching. We do that with our strength program, in our weight room. We do that with our fan support, which is tremendous.
Yeah, no, y'all showed me the image of your rival game where you line the whole inside of the track with bleachers and everything, and it's all packed full, even more people standing. And it's you don't see that kind of rivalry at a D3 school. I saw a little bit of it because we played a school literally right across the street that was our rival every first game of the season. And it will always fill up, but it would never be that full. That's like a true kind of D1 environment at that point. So it's a pretty remarkable experience that you guys kind of shared with me when I was up there back in the early spring. So,
yeah, we played DePaul like 130 times. And, after 99 years, it was tied 45, 45, and 9. So this has been a close rivalry, not a one-sided rivalry, and it ebbs and flows. But it's been very close over those like 132 years, and it's pretty amazing. And the thing is, the smallness of our school, it's very personal. I think a lot of people are like, yeah, well, Michigan, Ohio State, or whatever. It would be closer, honestly, to Army Navy. I mean, it's chock full of, again, on both sides, high end academic kids who love football and maybe hate each other for that day, or maybe while they're in college, period, until they need to use each other for business deals later. But there's no love lost in the rivalry, and we're fortunate to have it because it guarantees that no matter what, your season and your career are going to end on a game for all the marbles. And it's just, again, so personal to so many people. That's an enormous game, huge magnitude. Talk about pressure. So,
yeah, that's
if we don't
one
win
of
one in the next couple of years, you're going to have a different guy on this podcast. I can tell you that.
For sure. It's a lot of pressure for sure. I can only imagine. The only stadium that I ever measured up that I ever played in my career to the stadium you guys have and the environment you guys bring is Mary Harlan Baylor. And I'm sure you've heard of them. They're a big powerhouse out of Texas in D3 football. Their stadium is legit. I mean, it's right up there as well in the D3, legacy ones, and who's built a standard kind of like you guys of continuing success every year. And I think that kind of goes into the next kind of point is the blueprint for D3 excellence. I saw how those guys ran their facility and how they kept their facility up, which reminds me a lot of how you guys do it. When I came up there, and it was really impressive, especially with the press boxes and everything. It's like a full D1 environment, honestly. And you don't see that often at D3 level. So, with that being said, Wabash has earned that stellar reputation as one of the premier Division III institutions, combined with the athletics and the academics, like you said earlier. But from a leadership standpoint, what goes into building and maintaining that level of athletic and academic excellence, specifically at the D3 level, Coach?
Yeah, we don't babysit our guys, and Wabash is a leadership factory. So again, all time since 1832, 1 out of every 10 graduates from Wabash has been a CEO or president of a company. That's insane.
That is.
We're a little school. We just punch way above our weight. The guy that just got named president of J.P. Morgan and Chase is a Wabash guy. It's the biggest bank in the world. So we don't babysit our guys. There's one rule at Wabash. It's called the gentleman's rule. Behave like a gentleman at all times, on and off campus. And they get a fail. We let them fail. We don't helicopter them. We tell them the truth. If they get out of line, we'll smack them back into line a little bit. But the reality is there's not house moms and dads. And a lot of people, when they come, the whole concept of the independence that these guys have and how much they lead and run the campus as college students, people are like, what? Animal House is going to, they just assume since it's all male, first off, that's just dust and jock straps everywhere. Yep. And secondly, they assume, well, they can't govern themselves because it would be like Lord of the Flies. It's just not that way. We attract a serious guy, like you said, and they have fun, the regular college guys, but man, they lead. They lead so many ways on our campus that part of my job is to model great leadership, serve them, and then empower them and give them legitimate opportunities to lead. Sometimes for a younger guy in the program, that may be something small. And as guys get older, just, really giving them my ear of how they think the program should be run. We'll set the standards together. Ultimately, I'm still the judge and jury of all things. But I trust them. I love them and I trust them. And they've earned that trust with me. And hopefully I've earned trust from them. And we're pretty collaborative at Wabash about how we do things. The inmates are not running the asylum. I don't have to walk in there and say, I'm in charge. Everybody pretty much knows. But I do trust them to make quality decisions and to hold each other accountable and to enforce the standards, and they do it. Like if we're in an off-season workout and it's 5:31, some guy's not there, I'm just like, hey, so-and-so's not here. Well, they know what that means. Go get him out of bed.
Mm-hmm.
What do you, why are you here if he's not? So we don't have to spend a lot of time with that, or if some guy's not playing hard, or guys getting emotional and embarrassing the program, our guys just don't really accept that. But we go through a ton of leadership and culture training in our football program. And then I think the school and the fabric of the school gives them opportunities to put it into practice and actually lead in a variety of ways on campus.
That's pretty impactful, especially the stat you gave, 1 in 10 become, a major CEO or a VP or somewhere at a big company, and that's pretty impactful because, as I tell all athletes, no matter what level you play at, the cleats hang up one day. And it's important to have a good academic structure to back that, because when they do hang up, you want to have a successful career outside of athletics as well. So that's impactful for sure when you get tout that, when you're recruiting at the D3 level, that not only are we successful in the athletic field, but if you come to us and stay serious about your academics, you'll leave here more successful than the average, and that, I think that's a huge point for sure to, broadcast, because not many people can come out of a school and, be the first pickings at a FedEx, JP Morgan, or one of those kind of opportunities, because they're difficult to get in. I own this company, but I also work in the cybersecurity department at FedEx. And I tell people this story all the time on this podcast because it's quite crazy. The VP that hired me where I work at now at FedEx, the first guy he called was Coach Blaine McCorkle, who was my football head coach. I had no clue that until I got hired. And he told me that if Coach Blaine McCorkle didn't have a good thing to say about me, I wasn't going to get hired. So that's what I tell people all the time. Take your academics serious, even though you're an athlete, because you never know who that person knows. Because my head coach was a roommate with the guy I work for now at FedEx. So,
wow. How about that?
Yep. And they both played football together at LSU, and we're roommates. So it's a crazy story. And that's why I tell athletes all the time, leave a good taste in everyone's mouth. And always take your academics seriously, because one day it will help you in your journey outside of athletics. So, Coach, we're going to leave the main podcast at this, but I think it's a good, dropping point at this is developing the whole student athlete, which I think you guys do an amazing job at it. And I kind of wanted to hit on that because of that, because, you mentioned the true mission of you guys is to coach, is to love, lead, and guide a player's overall development, not only on the field, but outside the classroom. You've hit on this a little bit, but, how does the environment at Wabash support that mission? And how are you preparing these men to be so successful? Like you said, 1 out of 10 become a very major figure in the corporate lifestyle, because one day they will play the final snap under those premier stadium lights, as we all have at one point.
Yeah, well, the mission of Wabash is to really educate young men to think critically, act responsibly, live humanely, and lead effectively. And we're good at that as a school. We go deeper in athletics. As a football coach, gosh, we spend a lot more time with them than anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
The parents, their professors, anyone else. So we are really just committed. Our mission is to push our guys to reach their full potential in all ways, mentally, physically, spiritually, socially, emotionally. So it starts with you have to care about them in all those ways. If you only care about their physical development or how they're going to perform for you as a player, well, that's very transactional. And maybe that's okay if that's what they signed up for and you were honest about that. But we are trying to be transformational and serve them beyond their talents. So, again, we want to win a national championship. We were 9-2 last year, won a bowl game. I'm ticked about that. Everybody at Wabash is like, man, that was okay. We want to win. This isn't some podcast for like, well, these guys wouldn't understand. They stink. That's not the case. If 9 wins is just an average year over the last quarter of a century at Wabash. So, but we still care about the guys we recruit way beyond football. And our relationship with them has nothing to do really with their talent level. It has much more to do with their commitment and their character. And because of that, we do care about their development as a man, as a future husband and father, as a future leader of a company, as an athlete overall, as a student. And so, we have to wear that lens, which means sometimes football has to compromise a little bit, or we have to help them find ways to do it all, and not just worship football to the point that there's nothing else in their life. We have to make sure that they are developing overall as men, because football is going to end, just like we said. So again, we do that with a culture of brotherhood and commitment, where these guys are so invested with their peers and their teammates and their coaches that, it's a loving environment where, man, they're going to have relationships with us forever. And they're going to have guys as their friends who will stand up in their wedding someday.
Yep.
And they're not going to be just everyday people. They're going to be everyday people where we bring it every day. This is not the easy choice. There's much easier schools, much easier football programs. We tell them, like, I'm going to work you like a borrowed mule. Like, I want to make sure they know. I don't want them to show up and be like, I didn't know it was going to be this hard. No, we're pretty honest about it because we want to do great things. And so if that's it, you just kind of have to understand, Wabash isn't just a college. Like, it's a lifestyle. And it's not 4 years, it's forever.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not the military academy. I'm not acting like it is, but it's sure as heck not some state school either. It's kind of something in between.
No, that's awesome. And, when you're a coach, I respect the ones that take it beyond just the athletic world, build them in your space, but also keep that relationship. My head coach that I had in college, he wasn't the first head coach that when I went there, but he was the second one. And we still talk on a daily basis still this day. I mean, he watches my podcast. He's been on my podcast. I've had several of his former coaches and now current coaches on here as well. Because he builds such an upstanding athletic department and also helps make a transition. Just to give brief background, he walked into Belhaven after Hal Mummy, which I'm sure you know who Hal Mummy is, invented the air raid. And it was kind of shambles, honestly. He walked in the locker room the first day and there was music being played that shouldn't have been. And he took that speaker and threw it right outside the locker room right away. Because he said we didn't deserve until we won a single game that season. He meant that. We didn't get to play music on the field like we used to. We didn't get to play music in the locker room until we won a game. It's impactful when you have a coach that respects what kind of person you're going to be off the field as well. He held us to a high standard as well, that anytime an athlete was held accountable in the classroom for stepping out of line or anything like that, not only did he run, the whole team did until he either said sorry or confessed to whatever he did. So that's how you build men ultimately, and that's how you build a men of success ultimately in today's world. And I feel like some higher up coaches like that, especially due to the portal now, because they just want a player for 1 year and he turns around, right? And they go pro. So that's why I respect the Division II and the Division III level, because you still get that brotherhood and you still get that leadership from your coaches to build you into what you want to be ultimately, and you want to be a successful figure in this. In life and in your family and everything else. And, another thing you hit on, Coach, is that brotherhood, because every single friend that I still talk to were my teammates in college. And I tell anybody this, your teammates in high school, some of them will make it, but ultimately you'll build your, groomsmen for your wedding, and your best friends that you'll call still to this end of your life pretty much will be your football brothers or whatever sports you play typically. They stay with you for life. So
I just went on a vacation with two guys I played college football with at Wabash last week. So I agree. I mean, those are the guys that we have, managed to build relationships with and stay together for so long. It's just been amazing.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's impactful, and some of those guys you want to stay close with because you never know what they turn out to be in life. I have several friends that are even about to be head coaches. I have several friends that are, in the NFL coaching on the sidelines. I got two friends that play for the coach for the Buffalo Bills now, and it's crazy to see where your teammates can go and where they can conquer. And it's awesome to stay close to them because, you want to be cheering them on from the success just like you want them to cheer you on, and that's impactful for both sides. And have people like that in your corner is important. So I tell every athlete, find a program that has that kind of brotherhood, because that's more impactful than anything else in life. I can truly mean that.
That's the special nature of football too. I think football is just the ultimate team sport because you need so many people and you need so many different types of people. You need big people, you need small people, you need smart people, you need some people that aren't very smart. You need some really high character leader people. You need a few kids that you wouldn't let date your daughter. I mean, you got to have this mix of people. and the locker room becomes, like the American dream in there, man, the melting pot. And what's produced is this galvanized, synergized football team. When you're successful, they almost always have that in common. This great alignment of purpose. And that's, you don't see anywhere else in society where you can get this many people on the same page about anything. I mean, we are so polarized at the moment as a country and society. It's like, you just don't see it. By gosh, you go down to Tuscaloosa in the fall on Saturday, and people that do not hang out with each other or agree with each other about politics or religion or whatever, by gosh, they're aligned about one thing: Roll Tide. That football just has this power that exceeds sport for what it can do for the individual. All that delayed gratification, all that discipline, all that unselfishness, but then what it can do for groups who participate in it, and then what it can do for communities who just support it and cheer for it. It's a magical game.
No, it is for sure. And you hit something that I talked about on the last week podcast is football is the only sport, when you walk into the arena, there might be some arguments. No, don't get me wrong. There might be some fights that break out, but it's typically because they don't like each other because of the team they're cheering for. It's not because of politics. It's not because of culture, not because of religion. They drop all of that at the gate when they walk in, and they're cheering as hard as they can for the same team or the opposite team sometimes. And it's truly a magical thing because it's one arena that you can see throughout America that politics don't typically matter. They don't typically, influence any part of the game. It's just cheering on the team that they love. And I think that's really magical, honestly. So
for sure.
But, Coach, we're going to jump into the spotlight tonight, and we'll keep this short and sweet. But I wanted to touch base on, your schedule up and coming season, and also the bowl game you guys won last year, the Forever Lawn Bowl, which was a very successful season. Not many people get to make it to a bowl game. And, you guys wrapped up the last season kind of in a dramatic fashion, scoring with 2 seconds left and hitting a gutsy 2-point conversion to win that bowl game over Ohio Northern. And but looking at the upcoming schedule, kind of on your shirt that we saw on the podcast graphic, humble and hungry. Teams are never satisfied, like you kind of said. So the bar has always been raised for every team that has a successful season. So they got to typically come back and do that. So when you're building the foundation, stepping in and immediately securing that historic 9-2 bowl championship season, doesn't happen by accident. So what was the culture foundations that you guys established on day one to get Wabash performing at kind of that elite level so quickly?
Yeah, well, again, we've been pretty strong for a long time here, but I did think there was some room for growth and improvement physically, and I thought there was some room for growth and improvement mentally. So I think we worked pretty hard on mental skills. The bowl game, put that on display, right? Winning close games, in my opinion, are evidence of mental toughness. And so for you to just keep believing, keep chopping wood, keep fighting, even if it looks bad and looks bleak, I think that takes mental toughness. And I think our guys showed tremendous character in that game in particular. But that was an area of improvement for me. I felt like we were maybe not as strong mentally as we needed to be. The Bell game, when you lose the Bell game to your rival, DePaul, it just takes a lot of wind out of your sails. And so much of our focus is on this one game, that I thought our guys were a little bit spooked and just needed to get their mojo back a little bit, needed to build some confidence in our guys and let them loose and play. I thought we played very tight defensively. Offense was a little more free, but I wanted to liberate our defense a little bit to just play fast and play confident and line up and pursue and go get it. And not one thing about having really smart kids, there's a lot of type A. These guys are wound pretty tight, and they're used to being very successful, and so the handling of mistakes, that's not their strength because they don't make many of them.
No.
So I had to liberate those guys and change even a little bit about my coaching and started to try to free them up a little bit to just let it go out there a little bit. And I think that built some confidence slowly, and we built some belief and some of the mental training things we had instilled. And lo and behold, in that bowl game, Wabash always fights was more than a motto. It was an actual lifestyle, and always means always, and we got it done.
No,
It
that's
was pretty
awesome.
insane. We had 6 starters out.
Oh, wow.
So
That does
yeah,
make an impact. Experience helps big in those kind of games.
so we were not at full strength there, but that was a great win for our program to overcome those things.
No, that's awesome. And it definitely helps, as a coach, find out who's got that grit in them, who's going to fight to the end. And sometimes you find that leader in those kind of moments, when you're down at the last score in the last few seconds of the game, who stands up and takes over and kind of leads the team to the victory lane. That's typically you find the guys that you can rely on the most in those kind of moments, for sure. So, but Coach, as you guys take the next step, that bowl win, as you said, was a massive, boost going into the next season. But what do you think is a blueprint to take this team ultimately to the next level? Whether that's winning the Mon Bell or making a deep playoff run ultimately at the Division III level.
Yeah, so I mean, we've been there before, right? We've been to the quarterfinals several times and been a top 10 team. I mean, we were there last time I coached here before I left. Now I'm back to kind of restore us to a national contender status. Well, usually that happens in kind of a phased way. I went and visited with North Central. And their coach was very kind and met with me and just kind of talked to me through the lineage and the story of their progression through a few coaches to the point to where, gosh, they're the best program in Division III. Well, doesn't happen overnight, but you got to start taking those steps. So step one for us, we've got to beat DePaul. And they've done a great job over there. I can hate them, but I respect them. I can tell you that. Their coach staff's done a phenomenal job, and so have their kids. So I don't have to like it, but they beat us. And I have not won that game as a head coach, which means I have failed our team. Point blank. I've got to get better so that we can win that game. But so that's the first step. I got to do a better job so we can win the Monon Bell game. And then the next step would be obviously the playoffs. Well, generally, if we win the Bell game, we're probably going to make the playoffs. That's usually how it's going to work. Our conference is pretty strong. Hopefully, from now on, we'll have at least 2 teams in there, and whoever wins that game right now has a pretty good chance of being in the top 2 in the conference. But maybe not in the future. We'll see. Wash U's coming in; they're good. John Carroll's excellent. And then, like Wittenberg, Denison, some good teams. So we shall see. And then, win a playoff game. And then it just becomes like win the whole thing. Yep. But I do think with teams, if you watch their success, it's that graduated curve, right? Where, man, you're growing, you're improving, and then it just takes off. And once it takes off, you have tremendous improvement, success, and that flywheel starts turning where you have all that positive momentum and belief, and your habits become so strong that they just become ingrained in everybody, which makes the whole team more competitive. We're building towards that. We're definitely on our way. We're not there yet, though.
No, for sure. But that's awesome, to have that kind of success and continue that kind of, history of the success Wabash brings is also impactful, because it helps with recruiting, it helps across the board, keep the moral high up. And people can say what they want, but the D3 playoffs is no joke. It's still tough. Mm-hmm. It's still a tough landscape to fight through. I mean, you're going to play teams from the opposite side of the coast sometimes, and that's not always fun. And then you got those Wisconsin teams, they're always a tough competitor to knock out. And, and then you never know what Marion Hunter-Baylor and Hardin-Simmons is going to look like because, as we all know, Marion Hunter-Baylor, when I was playing, they went 3 years in a row and won the national championship. So they were never an easy target. I'll never forget the first game I started in against those guys in that stadium. It was our second season with Coach McCorkle, and we had them by 6 points in the fourth quarter, and they just outweighed us at the end. It was a physical game, very physical, but we fought, and it was the closest match we had in Belhaven's history with those guys, and it truly kind of brought out who we could be that year. And we came one game short from making the conference championship that year in the America Southwest. And it was a tough one, but Mary Hunter Baylor and Hardest Simmons, those Texas guys are different. I'll say that. So,
Yeah.
but for sure. But, Coach, we always wrap up the podcast with a podcast poll question. And this is always posted on our YouTube channel as well, guys. And this is more tailored to the Division III coaches. And we always love the input. So any D3 coaches that ever hear this or, go across the YouTube channel, make sure to tap in on this one. But, Coach, with the D1 transfer portal and NIL landscape that has completely transformed high school recruiting, honestly, and it's kind of forced the D3 program specifically kind of to adapt on the fly. So as a D3 coach navigating this modern landscape, which can be tricky at times, where are you focusing most of your recruiting energy? Is it high school grads only? Do you also take D1 to D2 bounce backs, or is it just mainly, if you do take transfers, is D3 and D3 transfers, or is it a balance of mixing it all?
Yeah, we're probably different than most schools. So, the number one place, better recruit our own kids. Better keep our own kids. So we need to have a culture so strong that we're not going to be someone else's junior college. Now, it's pretty hard, though. Pretty hard, and if we lose a guy and it's for like he's a grad transfer or something like that, then shoot, I'd love to help the guy, but we can't. We got to do a great job from the moment we start recruiting them through their whole career that they want to stay at Wabash College. That's where we need to recruit first. Second, we've got to be great in our home state of Indiana. That's 80%, and we definitely are still recruiting the high school kid, and we're going to be pretty local for the most part, and we need to win with Indiana kids. There's a lot of colleges in Indiana: IU, Purdue, Notre Dame, Ball State, Indiana State, University of Indianapolis, and then some of the best NAIA schools in the country. Taylor, St. Francis, Marion, Indiana Wesleyan, those guys are all great records. And then, the FCS non-scholarship, Butler and Valpo, and then Division III, and like it's a competitive landscape in Indiana to recruit because there's so many dang schools. Next, we got to be great in out-of-state recruiting, but that's more of a pocketed type of area, like where areas we can be successful. And, we've tried to hit Florida, Texas, and Arizona a little stronger there. And then we'll get to the portal. That's how I look at it. One thing with the portal, if it's a bounce back who we recruited on the front end and they want to come in mid-semester, I'm almost always okay with that. The transfers we do have on our team are great players, and they start for us, and they're good culture guys too. Mm-hmm. They're our guys, The guys that come in at the start of the fall, I just don't love it. I don't love it because the off season has to mean something. Not only spring football, but gosh, all that lifting and running. And so when someone to not participate in that and then come in and just start over all these guys that gave you everything, I just don't like it. I don't want that because I want the off season to be that important. So I'm not real high on that part of it. And if it's a guy in a portal that we didn't recruit at all, I just need to do some homework. If we have no relationship with them, I just can't bring in some one-year mercenary who may disrupt the entire culture and chemistry of our team instead of just developing a guy we have. I mean, we're a development program, so we're just not going to be huge in the portal.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I've heard it too many times from coaches nowadays, and you see a lot of coaches kind of adapt into it. You even see Dabo Sweeney saying it. You got to be very careful in the portal because if you get that one toxic element in the locker room, it could shatter your whole season. And we've seen it happen several times. It happens from D1, D2 to D3. They bring in a player and it just shatters a whole season in the hopes of possibly a national championship run. And that's why the portal brings a different dynamic. It also allows players that normally don't get the chance at the former way of athletics to get a chance. And I think that's impactful as well. But I think the portal.
The reality is it's here, right? So like we have to adjust and adapt whether anyone asked for this or not. This is the current reality, so we have to respond appropriately. We're responding this way right now, but that doesn't mean that it won't be different in a year. And there may be certain things we have to do as a program to take step one but then have to do different things someday to take step 4.
Yep.
You know,
I
and
mean,
I think as you follow Clemson, you're starting to see a little bit of that. But we believe in what we're doing right now, but I reserve all rights to be flexible and change courses if that's what it's going to take to serve our program the best I can.
no, for sure. And you kind of hit it around the head. It's constantly changing. We just saw the new ruling come out this over the summer. Is it's now going to be a 5-year window, and your clock starts either at 19 or when you start college. So it's going to be impactful to see that change also take place. I think it was kind of needed to a certain extent because it was kind of getting carried away with the 6th to 7th year players getting granted, and they were involved in politics in a way by allowing court judges to rule it. And I think that's kind of out of hand in a way. And I've hit that on the podcast and prior ones of how that's crazy. You can't just let a judge overrule the NCAA ruling. You're your own organization, stand up for what you believe in. And finally proud that they did enforce a 5-year rule, no matter what. No red shirts, nothing else. You get 5 years. If 5 years is not enough, I don't know what is. So,
right. Yeah, it's a mess out there.
It is for sure. But thank you, Coach, for coming on. I always close it out with a quote. And, this was an impactful story that I heard while I was up there at Wabash. And it was kind of from 1910. And you guys still have it in your locker room and in the stadium. Is about a Wabash halfback, Ralph Wilson, who suffered a fatal injury during a grueling game against St. Joseph's for you guys. But upon briefly regaining conscious at the hospital, his selfless final words before passing away where it was the Wabash win, Ralph Wilson. So I think that's really cool. And it kind of carries how you guys keep the tradition going. You fight to the end, and that shows till this day with the records you guys keep producing. So best of luck this coming season as well, Coach.
Thank you. Wabash always fights. God bless. Thanks for having me on.
No, for sure. Thank you, Coach. And I also wanted to show this as I wrap up the podcast. This is the Wabash College Stadium. It's pretty impactful, and thank you for Coach for coming on and sharing all what you did. But if you haven't heard about Wabash College and your high school recruit, definitely give them a look. They're a very talented team in the Division III football level, elite, deeply passionate, and should never be overlooked, honestly, just because what Coach Gilbert said tonight through academics and athletics. You see it in their championship mindset. You absolutely see it in the premier world-class venue like Wabash Stadium. They bring D3 ball as real and legit, guys, as it gets. So, as always, guys, Prowler up. We'll see you guys next week, and stay tuned for the next podcast, guys.